No matter what age, who doesn't love the beautiful and somewhat tragic story of Beauty and the Beast? I mean, it's a story of a woman kidnapped by a beast who was cursed as a child, along with a whole staff of servants who were turned into objects.
You must promise to stay here forever.
Kinda dark. But could there be another side of the story that makes it even darker? What dark and disturbing theories have fans come up with? How deep does the rabbit hole go, and just how dark do things get? I'm Teresa with Wicked Binge, and these are dark Beauty and the Beast theories that are really messed up.
Oh well. Guess it's not gonna work after all.
The three blonde women are prostitutes. Disney fairy tales and this particular profession don't match well, and certainly it's kind of weird to hear these two words together in the same sentence, right? But let's take a look at this theory that has circulated on Reddit. Three ladies, always walking around the street, giggling all the time, or at the bar, dancing and flirting with men, wearing revealing dresses regularly. What could this possibly mean? Especially back then. That's right, as shocking as this may seem, when we start to put the pieces together, the film is obviously implying to us that they are ladies of the night.
What are you hiding?
Let's look at some of the evidence of this theory. They're all wearing ball gowns all the time. And most of the film, they're seen at the tavern or in the street. You can clearly see that all of the other women in town are dressed in casual clothes, all except for these three.
What's next?
They stand out for a reason, if you know what I mean, especially given the fact they're designed with an emphasis on a certain asset. Another piece of evidence is that the ball gowns they wear are faded and dingy, which was a clear sign of a prostitute in France, around the same period in which the film is depicted. Still not convinced? Have you noticed how these girls are the only women at the tavern? Except for the poor barmaid, of course. And yet it's full of drunken men. In the 19th century? What could this possibly mean? It seems a bit obvious. Why, Disney? The Beast doesn't exist. Let's start with a pretty disturbing one. Is it possible, as Reddit user Fox in the Snow suggests, that the whole story was a creation of Belle's quite imaginative mind? This plausible and dark theory may ruin this beautiful Disney fairy tale for some, because it shows Belle's mental state to be not so great, to say the least.
What's wrong with her? She's crazy!
The user suggests that Belle created the Beast in her imagination, and the Beast is nothing more than an elaborate metaphor about the story's villain, Gaston. Do you want evidence? If you pay close attention, both characters, the Beast and Gaston, showcase the same violent tendencies, are both boorish and ill-mannered men, and neither of them knows how to read. Could this be a coincidence or a part of some more elaborated plot? The theory suggests that Maurice gives Gaston his blessing to marry his daughter early on in the story, and the two get married. But during the relationship, Belle realizes that Gaston's brutish behavior will never change. She begins to get lost in reading books and begins imagining a world in which she's able to change her husband's ways, and essentially creates an allegory of the Beast and his transformation. The truth is, Belle only wants a happily ever after ending in her life, like the ones in the books she keeps reading. So, the Beast could in fact be a product of her imagination. The Beast is essentially how Belle views her actual husband, Gaston, and her desperate desire to reform him is dreamt up. Belle's ultimate falling in love with the Beast and changing him back into a prince is really her imagining herself taming Gaston, who she views as a beast. When you look at the fact that Beast and Gaston essentially mirror each other at the beginning of the story, all of this makes sense.
There's no pictures.
If you could look at the symbolism at the end, you'll find something very relevant too. When the Beast and Gaston are fighting atop the structure, Gaston stabs the Beast in the back before falling to his death. This can be viewed as Belle's fear that after changing her husband for the better, she's worried that his old self will emerge at some point to stab them in the back and return to his old ways. At the end of the movie, the Beast she falls in love with prevails. But in the context of this theory, it might all just be in her head. The castle and the village are under a time loop. This is probably the oddest / creepiest theory because we're going to talk about a science fiction worthy time loop right in the middle of a Disney fairy tale. Two things that don't mix, right? Or do they? Let's look at this wild theory's evidence given to us by Reddit user Hainted. It's worth mentioning that despite the boldness of his claims, they did a good job putting all the pieces together. First things first. The village was under an enchantress curse, remember? Including the castle, the servants, and of course, the beast. Now, in the Disney sequel Enchanted Christmas, it's said that the beast was 11 when he was cursed. But frankly, we can't believe anything a Disney sequel says, especially since the beginning still image of the prince post-curse depicts him as an adult. Look at the guy's upper body. He looks like he was in the middle of bench pressing when the enchantress knocked on the door. Still not convinced? Why does the beast have a portrait of himself as an adult? This doesn't make any sense if he was a kid when he was cursed. Now, it's also stated outright that the enchantress erased the memory of the prince, his lands and servants from the minds of the villagers.
A curse upon your house and all within it.
But if you look at the evidence, it becomes more clear that she locked the village in a time loop as well. It's stated that the curse has been going on for years. What we can see is that the transformed servants don't age. Chip is still a child when Belle arrives. And he was a child the night the enchantress cursed everyone. And disregarding the sequel, we can assume Beast stayed the same age as well.
You'll come out or I'll break down the door!
However, Belle and her father were not caught by the spell because, if you recall, they moved to the town after the event had taken place. So that could perfectly explain why Belle and Maurice grew older, while the rest of the villagers, the beast and his servants, stay exactly in the same age.
That crazy old loon, he needs all the help he can get.
This is why Belle and her father seem so odd to everyone else in town. Even their movements are always the same because they live the same day over and over again. And if you notice, even Belle from time to time points out that the baker always has the same goods. The villagers do the same thing every day, over and over again. Everything seems so predictable to Belle and no one seems to age. The answer could only be that they are stuck in a time loop. And in the end, Belle broke this spell, which means that Belle stopped the time loop. Do you think it is possible that the whole village and all its inhabitants were stuck in a freaky science fiction kind of time loop?
Where would you get an idea like that?
Mrs. Potts' romance with the Beast. This theory is somewhat disturbing and will certainly change your perspective on Beauty and the Beast. It was posted on Cracked.com and has shined a new light on the teacup character of the story, Mrs. Potts. Let's start with the basics. Who is Mrs. Potts? She's the beloved and faithful housekeeper of the Beast, and she has a kid named Chip. If you think about it, it is kind of strange, because she appears too old to have a child. But even if she really did have him, it raises some questions.
Really? Was he excited?
The theory also points out that it's contingent on the time loop theory not being true. Mrs. Potts had to give birth to Chip right before the curse. That's what makes the most sense, right? So that Chip was born right before the curse, and aging continued at a normal rate. Otherwise, there's no way the Beast would have been old enough to father him if it was 7 or 8 years before the curse. I suppose Mrs. Potts could have gave birth to Chip while she was a teapot, but I don't even know how that works, and that's a whole other rabbit hole. So if Chip was born right before the curse, he continues to age normally throughout the years that he is a cup. Worst childhood ever. But it raises the question of whose Chip's father is.
I can't stay here another minute.
If you put Chip next to the Beast's human form, you'll see that the two look a bit similar. In fact, the Beast could plenty easily be his father based on looks. And ask yourself, was the Beast the type of person who is selfish enough to take advantage of his staff members? Yes. What do you think about these dark and disturbing theories about the Beauty and the Beast? Do you think they're plausible or simply too wild to be true? Do you have any other theories of your own? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. But most importantly, stay wicked.